Welcome to Sumbits, where we decode the PowerSchool development experience. Sumbits is brought to you by MBA. Let's start the show.
And welcome back, everyone. If you are still had to wait the whole 2 weeks to wait for this conclusion of the episode, we are back. Welcome back. Hopefully you guys have changed clothes. We have not. Alicia has. She got a little warm in her Sumbits hoodie, but that's okay. We'll allow it. I am still drinking the same bourbon as I was last time. 1792 bottled in bond. So not a new one this time. I'm not sure if anybody else is switching around drinks or not, but
I poured some Buffalo Trace since then.
You're switching whiskey.
I just have a different flavor, black cherry.
Ooh, it was Huckleberry during part one. Me thinks
it was.
Yeah,
and I'm still double fisting here, friends, with the spotted cow in one hand and cranberry moonshine in the other.
There is not much of the cranberry moonshine left there, bud.
Well, now to be fair, I didn't start out with that much.
No, you didn't. But
well, with Everclear,
good dent in it.
Yeah.
Everclear doesn't take much.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone. I did not end last episode, but I will remind you once again, we do have an email address, sumbits@mba-link.com. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you have any episode ideas. If anybody's dying to be on an episode, reach out to us. Maybe we can work something out. I think it'd be fun to get some listeners on here as well. So if you remember, last episode kind of ended fairly abruptly. I apologize for that. However, we were just kind of finishing up the conversation about how MBA got involved in the Wisconsin PSUG world. Apparently, it was way before PSUG, and they've been doing kind of a conference for a while. But one thing that we did kind of leave hanging was Ryan wanted to get back to kind of a present day MBA and had a little question for Alicia. So I'll let Ryan step in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I was really curious about was with the current global climate. And I mean, prior to COVID, it had always come across, I think, every boss's desk about remote working. But, everyone was interested in it, but no one really wanted to be the first. You wanted to wait to see how it worked for other folks. But of course, COVID really took that option away from you. You really had to just jump on it. And so what were your apprehensions going into it? What were your thoughts about afterwards? How did it work out for you? Maybe it didn't work out for you. What were the pros and the cons?
It's interesting, Ryan. And actually, before COVID even started, we have had more employees working remotely than we have in the Madison office for probably a good 2 to 3 years. So currently, there's 8 of us in the Madison office, but no one's really going into the office. I go in occasionally, and Scott and Kelly are there a couple days a week, and my admin Sandra is there when I'm there usually. But I think Joy was, Eric, you might have to help me out here, but I think Joy Velocio, our sales manager, was the first true remote employee hire that I hired.
Well, we had a salesperson prior to Joy, but let's go with Joy.
Oh, well, no, we had Sherry. Before Joy.
There was Sherry Flint. There was a sales manager prior to Joy as well.
Oh, yes. But let's just go with Joy.
I have a feeling it's a story we'll ignore.
Yeah.
Joy, yeah.
That one worked out well.
Joy lives in Illinois, and she was Sherry Flint, who worked for Superior School District and then came and worked for us for a while. And Sherry was still working for us when Joy came on board, but no longer works for us. So Sherry was really my first. And I remember it was always an interesting topic of discussion with employees working from home, because really, even before COVID started and back, when it's just so easy, as it got easier and easier to do things remote, it just was easier to train people remotely. You were seeing more webinars start, and more people were just starting to work from home, especially salespeople, even like at Pearson and PowerSchool and all those companies that we were kind of have been partners with always had people working from home. And it took a while to make that leap, I must say. And I know my mom was always very hesitant towards it. And but we hired Sherry, it worked out. And then Joy, it was working out great. And then we hired Mike and Carla right around the same time. And then it just, it was working so well that it was nice that you didn't have to have the requirement of you have to be in Madison to work for us, because you really didn't need to. Even if you're traveling for training, who cares where you're traveling from? You know, it just didn't matter. And we had enough people in Wisconsin that if we needed people to travel locally and do things, we were covered. And so, so from that standpoint, heading into COVID, we had more remote employees than we even did in the Madison office. But since we're coming up on a year here of probably most people working from home, almost the entire office, I definitely have the thoughts of we could be an entirely remote company. The big hurdle is our phone system, which you guys don't deal with all that much because you're not on the front lines of support, where we have to have a way for our customers to call in and reach support. But I know there's ways around that. I just haven't made that leap yet, but we'll see where we're at. I have the feeling the Madison folks who are working at home are enjoying it. I haven't had a conversation with them all recently as to how they're feeling about coming back and when they'll want to come back to the office and things like that. It's nice in winter to not have to get up and get in your cold car and drive to work and,
or shovel it out.
Right. So I definitely, though, can envision it being completely remote if that's just kind of, if we could make it work. I'm just not sure. I personally like going into the office. I like that I'm set up that I can work from home if I want, or I can go into the office. My setup in the office is a lot better. I have more space. I'm not as distracted. Not that I'm that distracted with, my husband's working from home. My daughter's doing remote school. So it's not like I really see them that much, but my dog wanders in and, stuff like that,
It's okay, Alicia. We won't tell the boss.
And it's just, I like also just like getting away. And cause like right now my office is also like my desk at home is in our den where Jeff and I sit and watch TV at night and things like that. Jeff has his office in a nice closed door. He works for the state and probably isn't going back for the whole entirety of this year. So it's been interesting. I think it's working really well. And I think we were set up for it, which is good because we had so many remote employees already. We kind of had the structure in place. And it wasn't ideal bringing new employees on in this environment, but I think it worked all right. Even Dwight and Nicole, who had to dive into support, like, holy cow, just, we were able to get everything done that we needed to get done. And so they could get going. And, it's weird thinking that we've never met face to face, and
well, and to be fair, I don't think the real challenge necessarily was the fact that we were bringing new staff on during this environment. It was more challenging the subpar quality of some of the staff that we brought on during this time.
That's just trying to get even with that bald dig back in the first episode. You waited 4 episodes. Finally
get the dig in.
It is interesting though. So Alicia, you were talking about people adjusting to working from home. I always said I wouldn't want to work from home.
I know.
I loved having that separation between my domicile and my workplace. Like, this is where I go to work, and when I'm home, this is my place to relax. But it actually hasn't bothered me nearly as much as I thought it would. And it is interesting living in Wisconsin, and I know I shouldn't be complaining about the weather when we've got a Canuck on the line with us, but like when it's 7
Winnipeg.
degrees outside and he's going, and right now Ryan's trying to convert that to Celsius, but
he can probably do it a lot quicker than you and I.
Probably. But, it's like, I don't know what the weather's like. I haven't been outside in 5 days. It is.
Yeah, well, you don't have a dog to walk in that 7-degree weather, so.
I love dogs. I've always wanted to have a dog, but I'm on the 3rd floor of a complex, and when that thing needs to pee at 3:00 in the morning in the middle of January, I'm just gonna,
all of a sudden Eric doesn't have a dog anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it has. I think we were well set up for it, which I think made it work all the better. So I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I really want to go to it completely, but we'll just have to see what happens here, because I think we could easily.
I think too, and there's something to be said, despite everyone being remote, for the employees, the people of this company being able to maintain communication and be able to maintain an interactivity. And it comes down to, honestly, I'm not naming names of software here, but it comes down to the right software and the right products to maintain that. And you've done a great job at getting that together. And I mean, more so than other times I've experienced, like, you've got a real good synergy going on with the products we have. Because I mean, obviously right now during this podcast, when we're all sitting here talking, we're all face to face and it's all going great. But even on a daily basis, I really enjoy the connectivity we have based on the systems that have been set up in place here. It really keeps us together. And obviously physically we're not next to each other, but that's the only thing that we're not experiencing. All the rest of it's still there. The camaraderie and there's another C word I can't remember right now. It's probably because of the whiskey, and this is episode 2 right now.
No, that's definitely not whiskey's fault.
But the collaboration, that's the word I was looking for. Collaboration. Yeah. The fact that we can still collaborate together, even though none of us are together, but you've really put together an environment that facilitates that, and that's what really helps. And that's what makes everything here so successful here. So,
well, and a big part of that,
I don't think I can take all the credit for that, but thank you, Ryan. I think I've been lucky enough to just build this great team, and I've had help in hiring a lot of the people that have been hired recently. So, I feel fortunate in that, and I'm very grateful for the group I have, and it is great to see all the camaraderie and collaboration going on. And we should be able to use all these tools, right? We're a tech company.
I think Ryan's just trying to butter up the boss.
It sounds like it, but I feel like this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of being in this world, even before the COVID world, MBA being willing to look outside of our geographic boundaries for the right people. For sure. Part of the reason we have these tools and we have this camaraderie and this collaboration is because we've brought in the right people, and it hasn't been limited to geography.
Yeah.
And being part of the PSUG events that we've been a part of for so many years, we've met so many people from across the nation. And when we see talent, and when we see not just, raw talent, but a personality that we know will mesh well, people that play nicely with others, we don't have to say, hey, would you be willing to come to Wisconsin?
Right.
Right.
And that's just generally feeds into the spirit, to me anyways, of PowerSchool. Like, it's been a very community-based software from the beginning, and to me, it's only successful if you continue to foster that. You need to recognize that. You need to put yourself into that, and I mean, it's there's a whole community that looks to that community, period. Like it's they don't care what power. A lot of people buy into the software, but they don't care what the company says. They just care what the community says.
Right.
And I think it does say a lot about MBA is making sure that we are part of that community.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So there was one kind of thing that we've, people have probably caught wind of as we're talking, but I think it's awesome that your mom started, and again, a women-owned business in technology in the 80s. Yeah. And that's obviously something that, isn't rampant. I mean, this isn't something that happened a lot, especially, looking back in the 80s. I would assume your mom's pretty proud of that. I think it's awesome as an employee of a tech company that had been started and still is run by a woman. Wasn't sure if you had any thoughts on that. And, you had kind of mentioned that this wasn't necessarily something that you had seen yourself doing at a younger age, but now that you are, it's just trying to get your thoughts on that aspect of MBA as a woman-owned company.
Yeah, it is something I'm super proud of. And I think it is so awesome that my mom did that. I think she just did it and didn't think much of it. And it's just what she wanted to do. And she was able to do it. So she did it. And, they always say, if you make it 5 years, you're good. And, and so as we kept going, it was just better and better. And I think I love that it's a woman-owned company, and I think it is something that we should be proud of. And I take that legacy to heart, and I'm really proud of it. And I don't know what else. It's just I'm not sure what else to say. It's just
you're good.
And it's not just a woman-owned company. And it's a woman-owned company in technology. It's a woman-owned company in the context of development, and I think that's a huge thing. I mean, still to this day, we're talking. I hear all the time about how there's an effort to get more young girls involved in development, and but your mother 30 years ago made this happen. Not 30 years ago. 30.
She found it as her niche, though. She found it as something she was interested in. I mean, she decided to go for it.
Yeah.
37 years now.
Yeah, sorry. I think I lost connectivity there for a minute.
Nope.
So I missed everything you said.
Not the seltzer.
We were just admiring not only the fact that it's a woman-owned company, but it's a woman-owned company from 7 years ago now?
In technology.
When even 37 years later, still in our current environment, where we're talking about how there aren't enough women in development and technology.
Yeah.
How many of her counterparts, like another, were female versus male?
What do you mean?
Like back then when she was starting out.
So I think you mentioned this to me actually along those lines, Ryan. Alicia, do I remember this correctly? Was she the only female in her class?
There you go.
No, I think she was one of like 3 or 4 or something like that. There were so few in her class. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Ryan. What's that number? But I know, like, looking at it with, like, I think if I were to go back in time and redo things, I probably should have gone into computer science or programming. I always, like, I love solving puzzles and things like that. Like, I feel like I would have had, like, the brain capacity for it, but I didn't. I mean, as a teenager, I wasn't thinking about how cool it was that my mom was starting a business in technology as a woman. I didn't know back then, and I didn't.
Well, and let's be honest, like it shouldn't be a big deal. And the fact that you were raised to not make a point of, it's not a show off thing. It's, I'm just as capable as anybody else is.
Right.
So it shouldn't be a big deal. So,
but also as a teenage girl, how did you look at this technology world? Like when you were faced with the possibility that you could be involved with it, how did it appear to you? Was it something like you just weren't, was it like a nerdy thing or, like something that,
I don't know my exact thoughts. I just knew I didn't think I wanted to do it. Like when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a guidance counselor or a principal or something like that. Like I just didn't have any interest in it. And Jeff and I had been living in California. He got a job there right after college. And, we came to the realization it's just insanely expensive and not the best place, like not easy, like so many people, traffic, everything that, coming from Madison, Wisconsin was just not fun. And so we moved back and I was trying to when I was in California, I had worked at Intel for a little bit, just like doing help desk like stuff, nothing super fancy, but and then when we came back, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And my mom was just like, well, why don't you come work for me and see and although I do have to preface, when we all, myself and my siblings, except maybe my brother, so me and my two sisters, like I would spend, when I was a junior and or a senior in high school, like I would go to the office. I'd have like 7th hour free. So I would go to the office at the end of my school day and answer the phone and, do stuff like that. So I had gotten involved, but it was like that type of it. And I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do.
It was probably more to get out of school than really be there.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but then when we moved back and she was like, well, why don't you come work for me? You could start, getting involved in support and training. And so, and I did, and I started to learn the Sims 3 software. But then, as I mentioned earlier, that integrated pro grade book came in and I took over that and was, teaching all these people how to use that grade book with Sims 3 software. And then they quickly bought Sassy XP. And then I just really kind of got involved in that. Right. And I was doing all training and support. And so that's really how it all started. But having 2 teenage daughters who are, constantly on their phones, using all these different apps, I would always say to them as they're going through high school, I was like, don't you want to take a programming class, learn how to build an app for your phone? Because I want more women in STEM, in computer technology, I want, but you can't make them do it. And so, who knows where they'll end up. But, if I were them, I think I would be dying to know, how can I build something to, but.
And honestly, that's where my question about where you thought about it back then was kind of would it echo how your own daughters feel about it now? And it almost sounds like there is, a
little bit, yeah.
It's indifferent.
I mean, there's that, mom daughter thing, you just don't, and you got to figure yourself out and, figure out what you want to do. I mean, I really wish I could have gotten them to at least take, one summer school computer programming class. I think especially my younger one would have loved it, but I can't make them do it. I can't make them love something that they don't. And, so we'll just see where they end up. But I'm not a programmer and I'm here today. And I loved training. I loved doing support. And so, I got to travel so many different places doing training. It was, it was great. And that's when you really get to know people, you're working with these people for weeks on end, getting them implemented with a new software. So.
Right.
So, yeah.
What were you going to say, Ryan?
Well, I was going to say, what is it that held you, for you, if you're going to put yourself in their shoes, what is it that held you back then from venturing down that road, down that path when it was an opportunity for you? if you could, maybe, put yourself in their shoes and see how it was for them and what held them back from deciding to go down that, other than it just being, I'm bored with that idea.
No offense here, but it could be the whole like nerdy kind of thing, still, which.
No, and that's fair.
I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think for a teenage girl, it doesn't seem like it still kind of is. Yeah.
For those of us who are nerds, we embrace that term.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can speak for all of us, but personally,
for sure.
And that's it. Like, how do you make it more appealing to other folks? And and that's it. Like, if it seems like it's this nerdy thing, that doesn't immediately sound appealing. So, it's almost like a question here is, on the flip side of the coin, how do you make that more appealing to the masses and both genders and things like that? Because I don't know, guys like tend to embrace nerdy behavior more adamantly than girls. Because girls, and that's
I think they're starting to make progress with that. I think they do have to focus on how to make it more appealing to girls, and I think STEM in general. And I think Amy Poehler's doing a lot to try and embrace that and make it more appealing. And, if there was one thing that, on a side that I could do, it would be getting involved in something to help just get that STEM involvement from these teenage girls at a young age and just see the cool stuff that they can be doing. And I think especially from a like computer programming side of thing, I think there's a lot of girls, females getting into engineering and seeing, getting into that world. But I still think we're lagging in computer programming when it comes to getting we don't have we have Kelly, we have one female programmer really, and so it's, when you look at it like that, it's like, okay, we used to have more female programmers when we worked on the other side. My mom was a programmer, Mary was a programmer, but right now we've got one. And so it's just, you look at that right there and it's like, okay, there's the point,
Yeah.
And it's not like I wouldn't look and we haven't tried. And, we've had female programmers and some work, some don't. And, but there's not a big pool of them to choose from, unfortunately.
And in terms of the stigma of the nerd when it comes to a programmer, like there is a spectrum of nerd, I feel, if you will. Yeah. And there's, I think the stereotype is one end of the spectrum, but I think what the world needs is more Sumbits. Because we are those nerds, and that doesn't mean that we can only interact with a keyboard,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's more to it, and you can be a cool nerd, and in my own humble opinion, I am one of the cool nerds, like we all are.
Well,
being interested in
Ryan and I.
Development doesn't mean you need to be antisocial.
Cool.
Yeah, if anybody sees us out at a PSUG or has seen us out at a PSUG or anywhere, I'm guessing you would probably agree that we're not going to be over sitting in a corner. We tend to be in the midst of people. We like talking to people. We like learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We like helping people.
And people evolve and change, so you just have to hope that it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think with girls, I have a niece who's 5, so it'll be interesting to even just see as she goes through school how the STEM programs develop and how they try to get more. I know they're making the effort. I don't know what the solution is. I still think it's hard for whatever reason to get girls into it. I don't know what the appeal needs to be, but
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know, we probably don't have a lot of, budding young ladies listening to this podcast, but for what it's worth to sell it, one of the things that I love about development is there are the developers out there that they get into it because they're not comfortable in social situations. So they'd rather interact with the ones and zeros. They'd rather interact with their laptop and their keyboard than other people. And that's fine. There's a niche for those people that it's just like, here's your job, sit in front of your keyboard. But then there are companies that have vision like MBA that are like, well, you guys are going to sit in front of your keyboard 6 hours a day, but then we're going to put you in front of a webcam and or put you in a conference and have you teach people. But on another perspective, even from the development perspective, one of the things that I love about development, especially with a smaller company, although we're not as small as we used to be, like MBA, developing in this perspective, I don't just get like, okay, we've got this huge system and we need you to just get this one little piece of this huge system to line up the ones and zeros just right. For me, development is not just a logical thing. It's not just if, then, else, if A equals B. It's like, how can I develop a user interface that is intuitive and user friendly, and how can I make this function from a technical perspective, but also make it function from the end user's perspective. And there's an art to it. It's not just the nerd stuff. I mean,
I was going to say there is
creativity.
I was going to say there is this creative aspect to it. And I think, at least in what we're doing, I think you're right. I think there's the companies, the big corporations out there where you're just doing this little piece and all you're doing is programming and you don't even really have a vision of what the end product's going to look like. And so it is unique that we're doing that. And I think that does make it a lot more fun.
And more appealing, it should.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really does, because there are kind of three levels to development. There's accessing the data. There's the business logic, which is the real logical part of it. And then there's the user interface part of it. And a lot of times I think in a really large company, developers get pigeonholed into this one place. But if that's one of the reasons that I'm still with MBA 10 plus years later is because not being a company of 1,000 employees, I'm not assigned to that one piece on one of those three layers.
Right.
I'm assigned to we need to make this happen for our customers, and I need you to get the data, I need you to program the logic, and I need you to make a user-friendly interface. So that there's some variety and excitement to it.
And then you know what, as far as the neutrality of everything goes with PowerSchool, I mean, we experience it at the conference, at the events, because of, and this applies to me, this applies to all of you, because of the fact that this is a organically, school in an education-based software, and every district, they have a different, you have 2,000 students or you have 10,000 students or more. It greatly impacts who will be supporting the software from those various districts. So in some districts with, when they have 10,000, 20,000 students, they're going to send whoever's in the IT department. But when you have 1,000, 2,000 students, it's going to be the assistant, So I mean, and so it really makes a difference on who is going to be going. But all the same, they're going to be learning the same thing. The person from the 2,000 student district is learning the same thing as the 10,000 student district. Right. And it has no, that's one of those. It's a great equalizer there, and it's a really neat environment to see that meshing and that intermingling of the different backgrounds, because we all, every single person at those events has a different background, really, but they're all there for the same end game. I've always thought that was pretty interesting.
For sure.
That is.
So, I mean, last episode we talked about, the history of MBA. We've definitely kind of stumbled into where MBA is now. I'm curious, Alicia, like if you don't mind sharing with us your thoughts of where you see MBA, in whether it's future 2021 or, even 5-10 years beyond, kind of where your thoughts are as far as where MBA is going to be. Especially, I mean, if history proves anything, it's that MBA is definitely concerned about helping schools, and especially in the era of COVID, schools themselves are changing, right? So,
right.
And how they're educating, and there's plenty of schools out there that are still 100% remote. Where do you see MBA kind of molding with that? Hopefully, on the quote unquote other side of COVID, we get back to some sort of normalcy. But I personally feel like education is changed permanently because of what we've dealt with for the last year. But to think about MBA in the future of where we go from here.
And just to throw on there before Alicia has her answer, like, I mean, you've already reacted in a great way with just your COVID plugin. That was a huge benefit to the folks. But I mean, so that's one evolution to it, and seeing that that's a need and that's a common need, and that you wanted to help the folks, you wanted to help the people, and then furthering on from there,
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a little, I'm not sure how much I can answer it. I know, like, thinking immediately in 2021, right. I feel like, it's going to be the status quo. I don't think regardless of how education is changing, I don't think student information systems are going away. But I am always thinking about the fact, like, what happens when PowerSchool, like the need for PowerSchool to be as robust as it is, even with or without our plugins, kind of goes away. Like, everything's trying to get so much more integrated, the SIS with the LMS, and the LMS is starting to do all these more things, take attendance, do report cards, so, I'm always thinking about what that next thing should be, but I'm not at this point sure what it should be. And, it's scary sometimes being so tied to PowerSchool in a way.
Sure.
So relying on it, but I feel like we are doing so much good right now that I'm not super concerned about that aspect, but when I'm talking to my mom and dad at times, and sometimes Carl and I have conversations about what else could we get into that's kind of not PowerSchool, and it's just, and I think we need to really start thinking about that. I'm just not totally there yet. Sure. It's like, especially with this year, it's been such a,
and that's what I was going to say is right now
it's changing and chaos, and
it just seems like right now maybe is not the best time to really start thinking too much about that, but just trying to get people through this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy what we've been through just on the support side of things. And, like Ryan mentioned with the COVID plugin, and it's, sometimes I sit here and I'm just like, I can't even believe we're like living through this. And, we're like, and, I was in a meeting today, and they were, asking, it was with other PowerSchool users, and most of them are folks from districts. And, what are you thinking about for next year as far as in-person school or hybrid or virtual? And so many of them were like, we just can't even think about next school year yet. We're just, it's a day at a time, or it's like 2 weeks at a time. Like, it is going to change things. I think it's going to change things in a way that makes virtual more accessible for students. But again, at this point in time, they still need PowerSchool. We still need our SIS. Yeah. That's not going away. And so they got to take attendance. They got to do grades. They got to do all that stuff. And they got to report everything to the state. So, but it's a good question. And it is, I think about it. I just don't plan as well for it as I probably should be, to be completely honest. Like,
well, I'm sure there's plenty of plans that we're not going to talk about here, but
yeah.
Well, and it's tough, I think. I mean, Alicia, you and I had this conversation, I think, early in my employment with MBA, that I never want to be part of management. I like being the code monkey. Like, you guys make the decisions, and you tell me what you need built. And I don't want to stress about what's going to happen next year or 5 years out. There's a lot of, I don't envy you having to think about those kind of things. But just in the context,
and I mean, looking at this year and like the scariness of COVID and everything, and thinking that we actually hired people is just so fortunate. And I mean, I'm so happy that we were able to do that, and that, we're in a position to do that and keep going. And, that's just kind of been my focus this whole year. And, how do we get to the other side of this, and what is that going to look like? And I was very pessimistic in the beginning, just from, just a sales standpoint and how we were going to do and everything. And we did fine. And so, it's okay. But it's still worrisome, because you're always at the liberty of what, governments are given, what the government is given to school districts, and where they're going to cut, when they're going to cut, and things like that. But we've been lucky, and hopefully it'll continue.
I just want to defend you there in your statement of being pessimistic. I don't think you could, be pessimistic. I think the argument is you were being realistic, and then it turned out better. No, yeah. but honestly, like, I mean, I don't think it was being pessimistic to hedge your bets on the lower end of things. I think it was a realistic view, and then things turned out, in a better situation, obviously. So
yeah.
But what I was starting to drive to a little bit earlier was, I think it's got to be really rough. You were talking a little bit about how we're really focused on PowerSchool as a company right now, and that's got to be tough. And you said that you've had conversations, you've had thoughts about what else we could branch out into. I imagine that's got to be a real challenge when you're making decisions about where to drive a company. I like my safe zone, which is part of why I never wanted to be involved in management, because my safe zone is being fed my work by somebody else. But where do you, is it difficult? Where do you focus your energies? Are we going to do what we do, and are we going to do it that really well? Or are we going to try to be the jack of all trades and master of none? Is that a big part of the stuff that goes through your head?
It does. And I mean, I like what we do. And I think we do it very, very well.
You said do.
You can't do that when you're on the phone with 3-year-olds or 3-year-old mentality.
Hey, remember that time you hired the Canadian? That was a great decision, huh?
But yeah, that's the trouble is, where, what is our next niche, and what would be it's difficult. It's hard to think about, because I don't want to try and take on too much and feel like we're, not good at anything we're doing and stuff. And, I feel some stress with that even now, with how quickly we've grown, and trying to like keep up with that, and making sure we're still doing everything, as best we can for our customers and everything. But I think it'll come down to a point where I will just need to have, hire someone to help me think about like next business opportunities, and start small, and just so we have something else to maybe, jump off into once we need to, kind of thing. It would be, my approach, I think. So see, it's hard, because I really love what we do. That's what makes it hard to even think about kind of doing anything else in a way. But
Well, I heard Ryan's really good at writing song parodies. If we ever need to dive into that realm.
Yeah.
So we need to release that somehow. I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen. So for our listeners, Ryan may or may not have written a little song initially for us, but we'll see if we can convince him to maybe release it to the world at some point. If you want to write in and kind of urge and pick him up and encourage him. Again, that email is sumbits@mba-link.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on whether you want to hear Ryan's song or not. Because you're really good at singing, right, Ryan?
Oh, I'm as good at singing as I think I am.
That's right.
It's better than what I could do, Ryan. I was impressed.
You just need to record it in the shower. That's all you need.
Hey, it's all the Yeti right here.
That's right. So a nice microphone makes everything sound better.
Well, this makes me think we need to come up with some type of Sumbits competition, a Ryan, Sean, Eric riff-off or something along those lines.
Oh, you don't want that for me. Not enough whiskey in the world to make me sound good to anybody.
What would be the genre though between the three of us here? I picture Eric bubblegum pop.
K-pop?
Yeah.
I would definitely cover Britney. I'm thinking
nice.
Well, because she did shave her head at one point, so I mean you got that covered.
Perfect. There you have it. I see Sean as more of a Zach Brown kind of guy.
I got a doggy too.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, apparently it's puppy time for the podcast.
I'm trying to get my puppy to come.
She wants to get fed, so she's like circling me.
That's what
She's like, when are you going to feed me?
I'm sorry, but Ryan, I can only go with Adam Sandler for you. Because I saw the video of you karaokeing medium pace.
Around me, baby.
It was precious.
Can't you see I need you so? And that's about where we have to cut it off before.
Yeah,
teaser.
But you owned it.
All right, guys.
You owned it.
So is there anything else that we're missing? Anything else we want to talk about? Alicia, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful two-parter episode.
No problem. It's been fun.
A little cliffhanger in between, so I hope you all enjoyed it. I know I definitely have. I've learned a lot about the company I work for, honestly. It's been nice to just learn a lot about where MBAs come from.
It was a good chinwag.
Such a weirdo. All right, guys. With that, again, if you have episode ideas, feedback, hit us up in the comments or email at sumbits@mba-link. And Ryan is dying to say something.
Next time on an all-new Sumbits, we sit down with Madam Schmarson.
Be looking forward to that. Should be a good one. Alicia, again, thank you. Fellas, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Cheers.
It was fun.
And see you all next time.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Enjoy more episodes and learn more at mba-link.com.